This is our regular series where we interact with people across our network, where we share knowledge and we improve our capacity to do the work that we do. As you all know, StartPoint is an initiative of the African Philanthropy Forum that bridges the gap between proximate organizations doing good work and donors who want to support them. And we have been doing this for quite a while now. All of last year, some of you were on those sessions, and we're very glad that you have joined us once again. And so before we get started, we'd like to know you. We'd like to know where you're from. So please, in the chat, just let us know your name, the organization you represent, and where you're joining us from. It could be a good place to make new connections. So yes, in the chat, let us know your name, where you're joining us from, and you're welcome to the StartPoint virtual learning session. Okay, I'd like to see your answers in the chat group before we go ahead. Now, for the theme for this discussion, for this session, we will be talking about what it means to grow beyond borders. All of last year, we talked about what it means to be an effective organization. We looked at some of the ways that effective organizations fundraise, how they communicate themselves, how they position for impact. But in this session, we want to do something unique. We want to hear from people who are in Africa, who are doing good work, who embody the kind of organizations that you all here can grow to be. And so in this session, we'll be learning from Leap Africa, right? And so this session is titled Growing Beyond Borders, Lessons from Leap Africa on what it means to scale into a Pan-African organization. So before I call up the speaker for today, I'd like you all to remember to introduce yourselves, your names, your organizations, and where you're joining us from in the chat section. Right, thank you. I should do that. Now, to speak to us today would be Kehinde Ayeni, who leads Leap Africa. Leap Africa is a non-profit organization nurturing young African leaders and advancing sustainable development across the continent. Under her leadership, Leap Africa delivers high-impact programs across more than 30 African countries, reaching thousands of young people annually through its core focus areas and strategic pillars. Kehinde brings nearly 20 years of experience in the social impact sector with a strong track record in strategy execution, organizational leadership, business development, operations, and corporate communications. She has held senior leadership positions, including Chief Operating Officer and Head of Communications and PR, where she has helped build an agile organization, strengthen brand influence, unlock strategic opportunities that enable long-term socio-economic transformation. So what we have here is someone who knows their material and who knows their work. Her work is grounded in a deep belief in Africa Youth Agency. So if you're a young person here, it looks like Kenny is the person that you should be listening to. Ladies, gentlemen, and everyone on this call, please welcome with me Kehinde Ayeni. Kehinde, it's such a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Yinka. Good afternoon, every one of you who have taken the time to come and listen to Leap Africa's journey and growth and how we arrived at this particular point in time in our organization's history. I'm trying to share my slide now. I know that our time is short. We have very busy. Am I doing this right? Okay, I am. Don't want to do preamble, anything. Okay, we have it. Super nice. Just a little quick thing here. And so Yinka has already set the right context for what we would cover today. And to structure the conversation, there are 3 sessions within the call. The first is to understand Leap Africa as the organization and how we became an institution, and then our journey to attracting philanthropic donation. I mean, this is an example of the fact that we work with young people and have been working with young people for almost 24 years now. And we've done our work in and around Africa. And therefore, I want to reintroduce to you who Leap Africa is, because when we sample the ideas and opinions of people, individuals and organizations on what they perceive Leap Africa to be or what they assume we work on, we get a lot of very interesting feedback on that. And so I'm opening up the session to really help us understand who Leap Africa is as an organization. It is a non-profit organization, first of all, and our focus is on youth leadership development. Our goal really is to raise ethical leaders that will champion innovative solutions, addressing complex issues in and around Africa, in spite of any industry or sector. This is a very big, audacious goal for us. And we've crafted our vision and mission statements, again, to be able to really uncover what exactly this means for us. So our new vision statement, which I think evolved in 2023, is to actually deliver an inclusive and thriving Africa that is built through dynamic, innovative, and ethical youth leaders. And for our mission, which is how we go about doing this, we really want to continue to inspire and empower African youth by developing capacity, providing resources for transformative personnel, organization, and community leadership. There is a big loop behind these vision statements, mission and vision, of course. In spite of how we present our work today, we are working within certain strategic approach. Our ETA approach really stands for the ecosystem building, thought leadership, policy, and advocacy. And why have we decided to work in this strategic alignment? We realized that Agenda 2063 under the African Union's prerogative, there are several. Okay. There are several issues confronting young people.
Apologies, Kenny. You may be muted, so we're just going to ask you to go right ahead now.
Do we have it? Okay, yes. Yes, I was saying that the context behind the strategic approach we are applying and have applied now for the last 6 years is really coming from a bigger global agenda under the African Union Agenda 2063 Charter. There are many reports and many insights that really suggest that Africa is still lagging behind, and there are about 10 priority areas in which we separate from the world. If we really want to close the gap and really achieve youth leadership, then there are some core areas in which organizations, institutions should be looking into. And this is why we have formed our priority areas, being education, which is really at the secondary education level. Our interaction and intervention there really is to ensure that we are allowing the educators, administrators, and all the right actors to ensure learning is really happening in the classrooms. And of course, this translates into transitions. For employability and entrepreneurship, this is a dual wedge for us, where we are addressing youth unemployment. We are also enabling transitions and really mobilizing young people's energy and mobilizing their talents, their free will, and of course, their agency towards specific development, which can be, first of all, socio-economic, and then can translate into nation building. And active citizenship, this is one area that we get quite interesting views around. Where does this sit within leadership or youth leadership? But it was a very big focal point for us, because you really cannot separate leadership and youth engagement and citizenry. It's really almost impossible. When you build a leader, they should be involved and invested and consulted in citizenship. They must be engaged in political discourse, even not so much about political discourse, but so much about having an environment that really works for every other person. Health and well-being is us really mainstreaming and engendering mental health and well-being, which is building the resilience of young people, really. So again, as we think about leadership being the focal point and force for us, our work really is asking, do we have resilient leaders? Do we have people with the right mental agility to really overcome the complex issues in Africa? And so this is our priority area, and is also not subjected to any specific sustainable development goals, but also still specific, because through our indirect beneficiaries, our work transcends from Sustainable Goals 1 all the way to 17. But where are we now in the scheme of things? The vision I shared with you came about almost 6 years ago, when we refined our strategic plan, when we refined how we wanted to really intervene and launch interventions for African youth. And so we have an agenda for 2030 where we would have reached indirectly and directly 30 million Africans. And of course, as you have this big utopia picture, excuse me, in front of you, you have to incrementally check where are you vis-a-vis this particular dream. And so today, our work is really averaging 30 plus African countries annually. And this is really coming from how we are leveraging technology to scale, how we are working through partners. I'll come back to that in a bit more later in my slide. And of course, the fact that we, reached 30 per year, I mean, since inception and almost in the last 7 to 8, our work has really touched 50. And yes, it might seem a little bit far-fetched, but it's really, really spotlighting where our beneficiaries are located, who is taking our programs, where they are reaching for information, how they are accessing the information we are providing, the local project that is domiciled within their communities. This is where the 50 is coming from. And from inception to date, we really have reached 12 million African youth. And I think at this point, we are almost at the 13 million mark. So 30 million is really possible by 2030 if we do more. But essentially, we are operating from Lagos, which is where I'm seated right now. And in this year also, we are going to have a regional office in East Africa. And so we'll be able to win from two worlds, and a world where we are able to function and reach Africans from West Africa, and also provide interventions that serve not only East African, but also, again, is a Pan-African institution, Pan-African serving. And so using two focal points to really reach our targets. But what is the outcome? It's not so much about the numbers. It's always about the short to long-term impact and what we actually deliver at the end of the year or at the end of a strategic cycle. And that is within human capacity development, community development and transformation, livelihoods, and socioeconomic transitions, and of course, nation building, which I already touched on. It's important to set all that context before we even get to the other interesting stuff, which will be very useful for you in how you also build your own organization, or you shape your own priorities to become an organization that is very well sustainable. Yes, it's important that we have our strategic priorities. And again, when we think about strategy, it feels like something management consultants would do, or something that is reserved only for corporations or corporate organizations. But the more you look at the world and you look at your world today, and I'm speaking to you as a nonprofit leader, it's important that you really, really scrutinize what should be our approach. And so in unpacking the approach a little bit is really how we are galvanizing and mobilizing resources and models that we are trying to influence through policy, and the voices that we are really advocating for. That's one model. The other side of our work is our direct implementation. We have core programs within the 5 programmatic areas I just explained that we are delivering in Africa. But of course, there is a big component of it that allows us to co-create and co-implement some of these core programs we have. But the winning streak is in the special implementation, where beyond our core work, beyond our core implementation, we are also able to do the work on behalf of development partners, governments and corporations, and even organizations, whether they are finding their fate and want to outsource absolutely a project that's within the framework that we have. Essentially, this is also another way that we do the work we do in order for us to maximize resources and also deliver impact. And lastly, our team is really one of the winning streaks as well, beyond the approach, beyond the fact that we are very clear on our mission statements, mission and vision statements. And our values, I haven't touched on that at all, is actually the people that deliver the work. And so we have a people first culture. We are not typically the best when you think about every other thing. But it's important to not just blow your horn and say we are the best in everything. So it's why I put that caveat. But the truth of the matter is we prioritize people. We are result driven is one of our values for sure. But the performance side of it is also well balanced, where you are also looking at the well-being and the growth of organization in tandem with the employees who are supposed to do the work. So if I move away from who we are and how we see ourselves today, it's important that we reflect on the past. And I'm very honored and distinguished that the executive director of APF used to be the executive director of Leap Africa. And so I am sitting on the shoulders of giants who have come before me. I'm the 5th executive director the organization has had in its history, including the founder and CEO, Ndidi Nwuneli herself. And so our journey to becoming an institution wasn't in 5 years, wasn't in 6 years, wasn't even in 10 years or 15 years, but a solid 24 years. But I open with this quote, just again to ease us into how we should begin to think about the way we are solving the problem and how we design the solution. Youth-led, youth-serving, youth-relevant, youth development work is both values-driven and rigorously professional. I've had the pleasure to work with very highly professional individuals in my life that have shaped my own thinking and my own journey and how I continue to also lead the organization. And so you really can't throw away the edge values-driven leadership has and how professional you also have to combine these two together to really deliver the result, whether you are in youth development or whether you are in health or whatever it is that your intervention is seeking. And so one of the answers to the question today is the 3 C's. I had to reflect on really codifying this solution today to say, how did we get here? Was it organic? Was it deliberate? Hi, David. Can you mute for us? Thank you. How did we get here? And I realized that there were 3 things that really cuts across. The first is competence, second is credibility, and the third is capability. Thank you. I mean, what is it really? Competence really refers to the knowledge, skills, and expertise that you really have. What do you know and what can you do? And who can do it? That is the dimension that is applied. The second one is really credibility about the way you're perceived mainstream outside of your organization, because when you do your self-assessment, you believe you're the best, you've got it right, everyone loves you, everyone wants to work with you. But really, is that the case? So credibility is the trust and reputation and legitimacy an organization has earned in the eyes of stakeholders. It is the dimension that really examines who you are and whether people really believe in you. And it's built over time. You really cannot rush it. And capability is the organized systems that you have put in place that really supports your work at scale level. And for you to really examine this is how you've replicated competencies within the systems you have, whether at the programmatic level, at monitoring and evaluation level, finance function, HR, you really looking at the package for capability. Automation also comes in here. So I'm going over to the questions, which is, let me see, I think there's a bubble here. So I move this up a bit. Okay. For each of these 3 C's that has helped Leap Africa arrive, I'm posing back to you, and I hope you can take a little exercise. So if you are distracted, please come back in and take a look. I would like you to really think and reflect. I'm going to share a few stories at the end, but I'm trying to walk us through a system. The first you have to understand is, do you have the right technical expertise in-house to deliver on your mission and meet donor expectations? One of the things that can hurt or cripple how well your organization can grow or how fast it can grow is overestimating your competences and not bringing in the right competence to the team. And also making the right call to totally outsource if you really do not want to be addressing that. And so it's really asking, do you have the right competence? Can we hire it? Can we train the person we have? Can we move people around, or can we partner with another organization? And really, how are they really on their own on top of the matter? So when we think about competence, Leap Africa way, one of the ways that we support our team and employees really to stay on top of trends, to be able to do their work excellently well, is not only to give them the time and the opportunity to commit to learning and development, but it's also to provide funding for that. And lastly, to encourage them on their own to invest in their own learning and development. So that answers the third question. But you also have to be asking these questions and wondering, have I sufficiently created an environment where we can build capacity, or rather competencies of our team? You can ask that question. We'll come back to that in a bit. When you think about credibility, the question I'm putting to you now is, where are you in the eyes of your stakeholders? And please do not be too pressed around the donor or the partner side. The primary consumer or friend or partner you have in the nonprofit space is your beneficiaries. They are your advocates, they're your ambassadors, they are the people that give you the evidence that you've done the work. Therefore, it really, while it's very great, let me be careful with that. While it's very great for you to manage your reputation in the eyes of key stakeholders, you also cannot negate where they come in. And so I put that in there because typically our mind won't go there. And the other side are the peers. So in the sector, who knows you? How well do people understand and respect you for the work that you do? Because it's in the evidence that supports your credibility. You really can put out a fantastic annual report. You really can put out a fantastic M&E report. But you have to interrogate, is it real evidence or is it false evidence? And so you can answer that question as well. The other side of credibility is in storytelling. Many years ago, it became a buzzword when we say we want to tell our own stories. Africans should tell African stories. But have you invested enough in telling the story? Do we know how to even tell the stories? And I keep asking, is there a story to tell, or are we fabricating stories? While storytelling is great, I want to touch on thought leadership. One of the things that we've done quite well in the last few years which is within our ETA strategy, is thought leadership, where we use information from the field as insights to recreate the curricula that we have, to inform the policies, and also how we advocate beyond the fact that we are implementing. So it's great that we have the impact reports, sustainability reports, but even greater are the learning questions that we sit back on, are the articles, opinion pieces, briefs, policy notes that we churn out in order for us to be able to advocate for the right resources to be allocated to the right people, or for right stakeholders to really be taking the appropriate actions. Visibility around brand. So, of course, I spent my first 10 years in the nonprofit in communication. So I cannot speak about becoming an institution without examining the brand. Yes, it is a thing. You're a brand when you have a logo, you're a brand when you have a name, you are a brand when you exist and you have all these things that people associate with you. So do not think of it as Coca-Cola or another moving good that you have to become for you to understand that there is a brand associated with you. And it's important that you continue to exist for the right reason. So people must know you for the right reason. So moving on, I know that we still have quite a bit of interaction on the next slide. For capability, this is really documenting the processes. And so the question to you there is, have you documented your systems and processes that are really critical for your operations? And what infrastructure do you have or do you need to scale? So when we look at Leap Africa, for example, I think in 2017, actually, we started making the shift to become paperless. And that was such a huge shift. And I think it took us 1 or 2 years for us to move from, doing things on paper, which is our finance function and HR function now, to, a software that allows us to work from anywhere in the world remotely. Again, with a lot of transparency, a lot of control built into it. But that was a move that had to happen before COVID even came. So the good thing about becoming an institution with years of experience and work and credibility behind you is that you are able to now to ask the right question, what next, and where should we be applying ourselves when we want to scale? Scale what? And so it's important to ask, do we even have the space? Do we have the technology for us to do that? Another thing that, I'm going to give as an example is our learning management system. So we have an experiential learning way in which our modules and our curriculum really is being deployed or implemented. However, as we think about the gap and the number of Africans who are still excluded from our programming, who really cannot come to Lagos or be in Nigeria or be in Ibadan or the urban cities where naturally we will plant ourselves to implement. What is the quickest way to get to them? It's technology. And we had to now digitize our curriculum, and we're still doing that, and converted a lot of our curriculum into virtual learning. And as I speak today, we have, I think, about maybe 3 weeks of a workshop going on, which is our e-learning boot camp. I'm not trying to market or anything, but it's speaking to professionals who are trying to become human-centered designers. And this is one of the ways that we are also trying to solve for the gap that we already see, even knowing that we already have a system in place. And so when we have a solution, while we solve for ourselves as an organization, there is impact for us to do more outside of ourselves. So we continue to innovate around this in order for us to scale. And so our natural program, which would have attracted 1,000 people per year, when we roll it out, if we take the case of our youth leadership program, for example, always enrolls about 6,000 undergraduates in Nigerian universities annually. And now we talk about completion rates and the rest and the rest. So again, this would not have been possible without scaling and infrastructure. And the last thing is really talking about strategic capabilities. How are we building to move into the next position and the next era of the organization? I think since you followed my slide, you can see that. But I want to zoom into this and bring the lessons together for us. There are 6 dimensions when you think about competence, credibility, and capabilities: focus, core question, and how is it built, and the rest. And so for competence, it's really at individual team level. Capability, again, emphasizes reputation and trust, while capability is just really talking about infrastructure. The core question you should be asking if you can do it well under competence, and can people believe in you, or do they even believe in you, which is your credibility question. And capability is saying, can we sustain it? Beyond the fact that you can scale, can we sustain it? And how is it built? For competence, through mastery. And credibility, your integrity, your track records, and capability through resources and the infrastructure you put together. But if I move on very quickly, an example, no, actually, let me stop at primary risk. Because again, if you do not associate your organization, your vision, and your sustainability to being a brand that needs to be around for a long time, then you would not understand that there are some risks that can potentially happen that can make it impossible for you to realize that. And under competence is really talking about retention and staff turnover. How are you mitigating this? For your credibility, have you been in any scandals lately? I mean, people say PR is PR, but no, in the nonprofit space, PR is in PR. And broken promises, not just to your partners or your donors, but also to the beneficiaries. What did you promise? How did you underdeliver? And capabilities is really saying the underinvestment. You've got to invest. If you want to have infrastructure, if you want to have strong systems, you've got to invest. So an example of competence is how well you have an M&E specialist to produce your reports. And credibility is saying who is trusting you. So INGOs and foundations, federal government of your nation, the AU, for example, and capabilities is saying What grant management system do you have to track sub-grants that you're making or organizations you're working with? Basically, from simple to more sophisticated, of course. Another thing, which is 3-in-1. So if you follow the presentation, the first thing that helped us to become an institution are the 3 C's, where I spend the most time. Now I'm trying to check for any prompts. Yinka, please, you have permission to prompt me if I'm approaching time limit, okay?
Okay, we'll do. But for now, you are killing it. We're enjoying it. Please write on.
Merci beaucoup. And so the second thing that helped us to become an institution is investment and commitment. And what did we do? You cannot go empty-handed to a partner or to a program. You cannot go empty-handed and say, we have a vision, we have a dream. It would be nice for us to do a conference. No. And this might be very difficult and almost impossible if you look at it in terms of revenue, in terms of income, in terms of expenses or expenditure, and other things like that. The question I'm asking right now is, what do you think you've brought to that program you're about to implement? Can you really articulate the financial side and the non-financial side of it? So it forms a part of your counterpart funding. So it forms a part of your base funding. So if a project is going to cost you maybe, forgive that I'm using Nigeria currency, 5 million naira, or maybe I can actually turn it around, $1,000. What I'm asking for and what has worked for us is that we go with $500 and say, we have $500. Can you give us 9,500? Do you see? Or if you can't give us, sorry, I was talking about 1,000, so $950. So 50, 950. Or you're saying, whilst we need 1,000 from you, which is where the money is going to go, what we have in terms of space, in terms of resources, in terms of in-kind, blah, 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 looks like this and probably valued at this, and I think would allow us to enjoy a partnership. So we had to spend time doing that, making sure we were very clear on how we were showing up and providing counterpart funding from every dream, for every idea we have or had, whichever situation. The second is the rollout of pilot and action research projects. You must test it out. We've come to a very dynamic time in the nonprofit space or development space where action research projects, if it's not in health, if it's not in fintech, probably cannot get or receive as much financial support or funding or flexible funding, whatever arrangement it is, as much as others. And that's because there are priorities in the world today. Even in the last 3 months, most of the donations for aid in quotes is going towards war relief. There's so much war and crime going on in other pockets of the continent. And therefore, your pilots or your action research project will be deprioritized. And so if you believe in a dream, if you think it's going to work, if you think there's something there, you've got to roll out a pilot. You've got to test it out and say, Party A, I did this with 100. I want to do with 500, and you can help me get to 500. You've got to think about it like that. So we did that. And I have several examples of how we did this. Example for us would be the Youth Day of Service. Our Youth Day of Service is an annual campaign that we run across Africa, and the vision started for Nigeria. We just wanted to really get young people involved, interested in the Sustainable Development Goals, and it came also as an offshoot of our Social Innovators Program, FoxPop, because that program was really walking around a lot of initiatives and ventures and enterprises within the 17 development goals. We would go around and ask, what do you know about development? What do you know about SDGs? And people really didn't know much about it. And so we didn't just find it as a fun moment, realize that, first of all, there's an opportunity for us to educate and galvanize. Second of all, can we allow young people to apply themselves? If you look in the media, there are so many distractions. Can we bring them to one melting point? And the International Youth Day by the UN became that one global agenda we could plug into. So that's two. And then the last thing was, how can we do this? So in the very first year that we launched it, I believe we had the most partners come on board. We were super excited about it. We made such a buzz about it. And I think in the last 5 years, no, actually, if I even focus on the first two, we had about 10,000 volunteers in the first 2-3 years across Africa, and projects going of almost 1,000 projects. But as the years have gone, of course, we've changed our model around. We've approached it differently, and we've done a few things differently. But what am I saying? I'm saying the first year we did it, we went with our hearts. And by the second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year, we've had the same partner who has come on the same journey with us. Pivot. Pivot is really saying, what needs to change in your plans? So the way we've done it, is that why we would do it consistently that same way? Or we would need to augment or change or shift our position? Pivot. I spoke about how COVID was the beginning of a couple of things for us, but some of the work we did started before COVID. So imagine if we waited for COVID to take some action, we would be catching up just like others. And we are catching up in Africa. And so the nonprofit leaders in the room, the question to you is, where are the pivot moments? How are you pivoting? And are you really thinking about your investment and commitment vis-a-vis opportunity to pivot? How can we pivot from just doing a bucket of things to doing one or two things and doing it very well? The last one is financial resilience. I mean, money makes the world go round. Money makes things better. But when I think about financial resilience, I'm not talking about fundraising. I'm not talking to you about mobilizing, resource mobilization. I'm not talking about that specifically. I'm really talking about strong financial management practice. And when you put words like that together in hindsight now, it makes me feel like, okay, was I doing too much with that? But the truth of the matter is, financial resilience is serious business. It's really saying, how are you managing the funds that is available to you? How are you optimizing it? So maybe the quick win for you is cost savings, leveraging goodwill. Financial resilience is asking more questions around breaking out and really streamlining your work and your project, and understanding, what do you really need? What do you have? And where is it going to come from? If you put these three buckets together, then you're probably on your way to getting or being financially resilient. But if you're not asking this question and just saying, I need $1,000, or I need $10,000, or I need $500,000, and you're not really thinking about, when the $500,000 come, this is what is going to happen. This is how we are going to tear it apart. Meaning, what are the expenditure line items? And how are we going to track it? Or how are we going to perhaps invest a portion of it, preserving the capital, to the point where before the 500 is utilized, we can then apply more. And even when the project is done, what do you do with the balance of it? So financial management is really saying, how are you reporting to your donors? How are you also reporting to your board of directors? How are they involved in shaping your resilience by looking at your work critically? It's good to look at the mission side. But if you're talking about financial sustainability, then you have to be asking tougher questions, and you have to be presenting differently. If I were to take a session of financial resilience on core mission support, on a couple of things, that will take time, but let's move on from that. The other side of financial resilience is now really just breaking down the structure of where the funding is coming from. So in Leap Africa, for example, I mean, I can use that safely. We have a very diversified funding structure. So I think there are five diversified funding models. 5 ways in which our funding comes through. So first of all, it's going to be the grants, whether restricted or unrestricted. The other one is in our fees and commissions, which comes through the work that we do, and we are paid for doing the work. The third is also in monetization of our program. So the program I spoke about, I said is happening between now and a couple of weeks. Professionals are paying us a token for us to be able to bring together professionals that will educate them and allow them to earn better or become better at their job or whatever it is. I mean, if you check our website, you will see some of these upcoming programs that are paid for. And so paid programs which are monetized is also another way that we are. Of course, when you think about the percentages, it's way, way low compared to the grant. But the conversation we are having is, if the funding ends tomorrow from grants, what happens? So if you are even working with only restricted, again, it limits how much you can build financial resilience. And so in looking at the financial practice, really is saying, how well diversified are you? And how are you really structured? Anyways, moving on. I don't want to get into too much of that. I think I was speaking about the five. And then the other way is to become a physical sponsor for organizations. So when we absorb projects for organizations that really wants to implement it as a form of CSR, because we do that, we are able to, move funds along and get the projects going. That is another way that at least can pay for maybe power or light or whatever. It's something. So I need you to think about it as something rather than nothing. Essentially, financial resilience is saying, how can we remain stable, responsive, and actually confidently invest in our mission delivery? Every of this money that is coming, by the way, goes back to how well we can plan and project for tomorrow. How many more people can participate? So if I use another model, and I'll move on. If I use another model, when we monetize or we have program fees and ask people to pay a participant, beneficiary professionals to pay for a program, whatever it is, that funds, once it's available, allows another person to get into it for free, scholarship, or get into it partially. And so everything goes back into the mission. So this year, our target is 30,000 Africans, just because we are racing towards 30 million, for example. Whatever we do this year allows us to be able to do, let's say, double that, 60. I'm just saying that, 2x. That's an example of what this translates to mean. So you're not looking at financial resilience in isolation. You are looking at it in tandem with your vision and your strategic goals, your annual work plans, and all the rest of these good things. Moving on. I'm almost done, so we can really talk. So, I mean, in 2021, we received this huge philanthropic donation. The first we've gotten in the organization history. When we started, we used to, receive individual donations, and then philanthropic became so big across the world. And of course, one of the big donors or contributors became McKinsey Scott. But how did she find us? Do you want to ask? I mean, of all the organizations in the world, in Africa, in Nigeria, how did she find us? What were we doing when she found us? And what have we done after she found us? So this is what I'm going to do as I try to wrap up. The first thing is incremental progress and scale. So big, hairy, audacious goal is one of the things that we were doing when she found us. In fact, if I reflect on the conversations around why we were selected, it came around the fact that we were doing, I think, 2 or 3 projects that were very audacious and were already spanning into Africa. So it wasn't because the donation came, we moved into Africa. We were already in Africa, implementing programs in Africa. We were already scaling before the donation came. And so it came on the backdrop that if you're doing something well and you're doing it with limited, constrained resources, here is my contribution to you so you can have what to do more with. So first of all, it must be that. The second is what I already said about projects and influence. The first project we implemented outside Nigeria was really in the education pillar of our work, and we did it with a partner. We went to 5 African countries over 4 years, and that project wrapped up in 2022 or 2023, 2022. And it gave us huge insight into what it really meant to really customize our curriculum, what it really meant to understand the intricacies of youth development, intervention, the deployment, the potential impact. Our work started from 2017. So you must start from the year you wrote the proposal to the point you now secure the grant before you now implement, and then you close. So it's not something that happens in one day when we think about becoming a Pan-African organization or becoming Pan-African in its entirety. And it's in the name. I believe the vision was already there for us to really cut our coat really, really big. The third thing that was happening for us was governance and institutional systems. There's something here. Governance and institutional systems. So we are 24 in 2 months, 24 years since inception in 2 years. One of the big backings we've had is our board of directors. And I say this with a lot of humility that we've had some of the best professionals in their field that have volunteered their time years on end for the organization. So it's very important that you are thinking not only about your mission to position for such a given or for you to be, selected for such a given. It's also coming down to the credibility side of the things I said. Your board of directors or your governance structure, your governance system really gives you that credibility. It really gives you that credibility. And you have to think about it. How do people come onto your board? Who is on your board? How are the engagements happening on the board? Is it a board that's happening, a board meeting that is happening once in a year or 4 times in a year, according to the compliance that is supposed to be completed in the year, or we see when we see? Is that what's happening? That's on the governance side. And then the institutional system really talked about strategic coherence. So when I talk about the strategy that we are implementing, how we got here, this one that we are implementing is refreshed, but the original started in 2019 when we launched the 5-year plan, before COVID, and we had to reevaluate. And institutional systems is really saying, what are the frameworks, internal controls in the organization? It's very important. So we had to demonstrate that we had internal controls. It's just not one person that does everything. It's just not one person or one department that handles all, that we have a governance system. Our organogram is super structured. Our team composition is about 56 now. We have 2 offices in Nigeria, one in Lagos, one in Abuja. Of course, Lagos holds the largest team, and the second largest is in Abuja. And with the new office we are opening, of course, again, what am I doing here? I'm trying to help you understand that the journey to receiving that also was because we gave a lot of confidence that it wasn't just about one ED or one CEO, if you relate more to that, or one person or one face. Is really about more than that, about strategic coherence, about the internal controls and mechanisms, about the transparency and so many other things. And I think I've already touched on succession planning and continuity in doing that. When I say also that I'm the 5th executive director, we are not tenured, by the way, but the thing is, the way the organization is built and structured, it allows for succession to happen. And that's one. The other part is business continuity. Do you have a business continuity plan in your organization? Do you have one? You may want to think about it. And there are many things when you think about continuity: your risk assessment, mitigation plans, how you're getting trained, tax compliances, all of these things, they're intertwined, which is, number 3 and number 4 are intertwined. I move on to the last one, institutional strengthening and support. I think I was going to say something there. Sorry, broken text. Institutional strengthening and support. We were very lucky to have received institutional support or strengthening support from another foundation before the philanthropic giving came in 2021. The support we received from the foundation was for 5 years that allowed us to take a step back and ask critical questions and perform assessments and then see where are the gaps in our internal controls, our institutional systems, knowledge management systems, our governance structure, potential structure, given our expansion, evolution, looking at our programs and curriculum, given our perception, and so many other things. We were able to focus on the things that was going to accelerate our growth because we already had support. And so as you go about your work and think about your future and envisioning the next 10 years or 15, 20 years for your organization, you also have to be thinking, who is going to give us, or where are we going to get the support that will allow us to comfortably sit back and really examine and perform the exercises required for us to do our mission-aligned work and do it very well. And so that wraps up what we were doing. The final thing I'm going to say before I move on is the fact that the process was rigorous. Yes, it took months and almost a year, if I'm honest, from all the due diligence that had to be done. And best believe due diligence was done. When I say that, I mean, yes, vetting. You have to be sure who is who and all these other things that they had to do. And of course, we had to provide a lot of documentation, which goes back to the governance and institutional systems I was talking to. We had to provide a lot of information. We had to provide a lot of documents, not just your document to say I'm registered, we are an entity. It goes beyond that. Your board charters. Do you even have a board charter? There's so many documents, there's so many things that make an organization and make an institution. And you have to be thinking, can I start small and what do I need? And so the process of getting it was also very rigorous. And it's like, I need it. Can I get it now? It's not something you're manufacturing and saying, let's get it to you in 2 months. You've got to be prepared. You've got to be ready. You've got to be able to do it when the opportunity comes. Integrity, my favorite thing. I mean, whilst all the things I've said is fantastic, noble, and true and fair, one thing that Leap Africa really propagates is an ethical culture, an ethical business environment, ethical citizen, ethical leadership, ethical, everything. And it boils down to one big value, is integrity. It's also one of the values that we hold very dear. And so when we think about becoming an institution, attracting funding, who we are today and more, it's really hinged around integrity as an organization. So you have to have integrity. What are the things you will not compromise on? What are the things you will not trade on? Do people know you to have integrity? Which is also coming back to the 3 C's, really. You have to think about it. So I wanted to zoom into this integrity picture so that we remember that fundamentally you are building on something. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. A virtual round of applause to Kehinde Ayeni for such a wonderful, well thought out, excellent presentation. I need to see 5 million applauses. So I want everyone who's on this call to drop me an applause emoji. Thank you very much. I am reeling, I am thinking. I know people have questions, but I want to say personally for me, I found that very helpful. I think in the breakdown of what you did, of what it means to be competent, to be credible and capable, and thinking about the different domains of how that applies, I found that truly insightful. Something you didn't say, but I heard consistently, was learning to approach your work as a business, as a going concern that should continue. And you did mention that somewhat when you said we often get stuck in the mission of what we're doing. You know, nonprofit wants to do good, but there is the business of it that people need to be able to trust and see and support. And that's very helpful. One thing also that also sort of rewired my brain was when you began to go into the nitty-gritties of what it means to build a credible business, and using that example of what happened with McKinsey Scott Grant. For those of you who don't know what the McKinsey Scott Grant is, you may be living under a rock, I will help you. One of the largest, I mean, a philanthropist who gives one of the largest groups in the world, saw Leaps Africa and was moved to give them serious, heavy funding. Kehinde was very short to not mention the figure, but we can go past that. And so what we have here is a picture of an organization that started small and has grown tremendously. If you have any questions, now is the time to do so before I continue with my own questions. So if you have any questions, you want to raise your hand so we can take them. I'm seeing good Kenny, fantastic Kehinde. You have so many fans here. There is hands. Okay. All right. So just giving people time to indicate so we can take questions. Okay, great. So if you can't raise your hands, you can also put your questions in the chat and we will get to them also. Kehinde, one question for you, if you don't mind. You mentioned early the fact that, and I found that moving, that Leap Africa has gone through a lot of different leadership transitions. And you mentioned how, different leaders have come on board and gone in Leap Africa. I'm just wondering, to what degree was this process reactive versus proactive? So was it that all of these strategies came about as a result of the different leadership transitions, or they were all in place before this transition happened? We'll take that one and then we'll go into the audience to people who have their hands up. Okay, you're muted, yes? Okay, just give me 1 second. I need someone to unmute her. All right. Sincere apologies for that. So, Kenny, while we fix that issue, I'll just ask Winnie and Penina to ask their questions, and then you can take them all together if that's okay. All right, Penina. Yes, Kenny, please go ahead. I think you're ready to go now.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, let's take a question. Go ahead, please.
Oh, hello. Thank you. Thank you for the meeting. Penina from Maasai Girl Initiative. And maybe my question, I'm just asking, is APF connected to LEAP or is it one organization? Yes. And thank you for the great insights that you've given us. Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you,
from
Penina.
Kenya.
Thank you. Yes, Winnie, you have a question?
Can I be on mute? Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Kenny. Can you hear me very clearly? Yeah, first things first, I want to appreciate you. My name is Winnie. I'm the convener of Nigerian Volunteers Award, if that is familiar with you. And we are one of the beneficiaries of the Youth Day of Service project every August. So I want to say very, very big thank you for the backing. Even though we'll be looking forward to having you as our keynote speaker for one of these year's edition, but we're trusting God your schedule will permit you, for subsequent edition. So this year will be our 10th year, August, but the reason I'm using this as an example is just to encourage others that just like what you are saying, that you have to show workings, whatever you are doing, people have to see that you are doing stuff. It's not just okay to come out and say, oh, I want to do this. What have you done? Have you invested in that project? Have you invested in the organization? How can people believe that you actually, you really have what it takes to deliver and you are impact driven? Because at the end of the day, whatever we do as social impact champions, I think it's imperative that impact is the ultimate goal for everything. So that's what I have to say. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, Winnie. Yes, over to you, Kenny.
Super. So there was a question to you, but I'll take the very first one, which you asked, And thank you to the last speaker. It's nice, and this is how people fact check you. You know, you just be saying you work, and then people will just come and say it's a lie. It's not true. But I'm very happy that there are evidence of the work in the room. Our impact really goes beyond the numbers we can give, because in a room or two, or in a room of 50 or 100 or even of 1,000, I guarantee you there's someone who has participated in a Leap Africa project, initiative, or whatever it is that we've supported in the past and is supporting. To answer the question, the answer is no. So when we started in 2002, for example, our vision and mission were so broad and really catered to even a larger demography. Right now, our demography is 35 and under, well, starting from 14, so we can be very careful. So our intervention really captures 14 to 35 years. Unlike before, we really had an expanded demography that we're catering to. But even till tomorrow, the actors and influencers and institution heads that we target are over 35 years. What we are saying is, can we prioritize 35 and under to receive the direct support and intervention, and then the kind of support and partnership we pursue with the 35 and older who lead and manage organizations and institutions receive a different kind of support from us. So that's why there is that component. Again, when I say no, the world today has changed significantly. So with the evolution of the type of young people and young Africans we have, the program that was okay, palatable, sustainable, agreeable, relevant, then no longer becomes relevant. So one of the things that we do in our organization is we update our curriculum every 2 years, which is even late. So is it inclusion? We update it to reflect inclusion and be accessible to others in formats that they can really interpret or consume it or interact with it. And then you now still have to add on information. So we now have AI potential trainings and curriculum that we are already imputing. There's so much that we are doing there. So the good thing about the vision, to end the question, is it allows us to see beyond the now and beyond one program. So our YLP program that was just done in university campus, one-on-one, let's bring people together in regional clusters and more, is one that we are now delivering nationwide. And last year we had 24 states in Nigeria on it, and 244 academic institutions. That's where the 5,000 plus students came from. That would have been impossible. So we didn't script and codify the vision to the T and how we are executing it this way. But the great thing about our vision, it allows us to really think beyond what those statements mean and how we resource and steward sub-grant, because we do such a lot of work. Sub-granting is another big one that we do. And I didn't even speak to a project that we are facilitating civic leaders and the civic organizations to really work in the grassroots to support democracy and engender good governance. So that's another project that we do, for example, that I didn't get to speak about. And that's why when people see me, they stop me and ask, oh, Leap Africa has just supported us. And I ask the name of the organization. It's quite unfamiliar because we are talking about 300 organizations per year. And this is our 5th year. So quite a number of organizations that we've stewarded the funding that development partners have given us.
Wow, excellent. Yes, so that answers those questions. So the person who asked, APF, Leap Africa is an organization in our community whom we are proud to work with. We are different organizations, as the names indicate. Now, there's a question here that serves as a bit of a capsule for everything you've discussed, and I'd like you to take it. This is from Priska Bisendo, who says, after appreciating you deeply, of course, she says, regarding the transition from local to being global, what's one advice that you would give to smaller emerging organizations that have demonstrated consistent impact but still struggle to bridge the gap with connecting to large-scale donations and donors?
Okay. So we didn't rush out, I have to say. We We didn't just go out working in African countries because we think it's cool, we think it's nice, or we think it's the next best thing, or because other organizations are already working from there or are already set up and operationalizing. You must always ask the big question, why, and the so what. And then when you think about expanding and working in African countries, is somebody else already doing the work there? When we are talking about our work in Africa, in opening our new office there, the work we are going to do there is not a mirror of what we are doing here right now, because some people are already responding to that issue or to those issues in East Africa. So in going there, we are doing a little bit of something different. We are also pursuing low-hanging fruits, and we are also riding on the momentum. So my advice is partner with an organization in those places where you think your work would be needed or relevant or useful. Partner with someone there, bring your resources to them, provide your resource to them, share your plans or help them. Let them take a portion of the work that you feel is relevant, and that way you can begin to claim the impact for what it really is, which is in 5 years, the program can become fully fledged where you can on your own do it. So that's one way I would advise you to pursue that if you are really interested in becoming a Pan-African organization. And in terms of funding, I think that it's become very, very competitive for you to, put out a proposal and win that proposal. For every no you have, somebody has gotten a yes. And we also get a lot of no's for the proposals returning, because again, there are many things and many criteria that makes it less, let's say, that makes it very difficult for organizations to say no or yes per time. So you have to always work in context and say, who's providing the funding? Do I really qualify for the funding? And you never know. If you ask, it probably might just come. So
You never
that's how
know.
I'm going.
Thank you. So I'll take 2 more questions before we wrap up. Thank you very much. There's so many questions, but if you had asked them earlier when we were asking you to, we probably would have gotten much farther. But this is a very interesting one. This person says, thank you, Kenny. What would you recommend that just starting out organizations prioritize first? Should they prioritize financial sustainability, building strong program beg pardon, let me reword this. What should you prioritize first in order to be financially sustainable? Should you prioritize building strong programs, securing partnerships, or just developing new revenue streams?
No, the answer is no to revenue stream. That's not where you start. I can tell you that for free. I think you should build strong programs first. Let me tell you, we have most of our partners work with us for years. We have a partner that has worked with us for 20 years or 23 years or 24. We have another that worked with us for 10 years. So we start the program of 12 years, the program was started. They worked with us for 10 or 9. So what am I saying here? If the program is not strong, you won't have them for a long time because they're not sure what it is or whatever. So build strong programs. What needs to happen is as you're building the strong program and the funding is coming, you now begin to also work out the sustainability side of it. How can we ensure this funding goes farther? I make a crude joke to say, if somebody gives you 5,000 naira, that 5,000 naira must buy you chicken, must buy you rice, must buy you plantain, must buy you salad, must buy you whatever it is. And that's how the funders also want you to spend the money. But I agreed also that it might not be possible that you can buy all these things with 5,000 naira. You must be able to also say it's not possible. But again, it's really wondering about if this partner doesn't give us the entire 10,000 we need, can 4 people give us the 10,000? So you ask 25. So again, you have to think about your sustainability and the financial resilience by not overburdening one organization. Every organization that has continued to support us do so because we are not overly dependent on them, and we demonstrate it because when they ask that question, who else is supporting you or funding your work? we provide multiple, it's not just one. So it gives them comfort and reassurance that these people can actually have some system that is working and answering the right questions. So, Inka.
Perfect. There's sort of good questions here. And I hope that your answer also answered the question here someone had about, what business models work in order to allow, organizations start and maintain financial viability. People are asking what you think about how AI is affecting their work. People are asking how do they retain the right talent so they can develop the kind of competence they have. But sadly, we are at time. So at this juncture, if you have any questions, please hit us up via email, send them in to us on social media, and we'll be happy to answer them. But at this point, we want to thank you for making the time. We want you to know that this session was so good, we decided to let you guys have the recording for free. So if you want to go back to it, see, we could have studied the revenue model and charge you for it, but instead, we're happy to offer it to you. Thank you for making the time, Kenny. I'd like you all to give a round of applause, a heart in the comments while that is happening. For everyone who is joining us, we want you to know that there will be other sessions, so we'd like you to stay tuned for updates in that regard. And I want you to say goodbye to us, Kenny, before we wrap up.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Let's talk about this